welcome to this episode of For Traveling Teens. I'm Shae Pepper, the Traveling Teach. In today's episode, you'll meet Valerie. I found a bit of a kindred spirit in Valerie when we talked all about all the amazing food that she's tried around the world, particularly chimney cake from Prague. Come and listen to what her travel dreams are and some of the best places she's been to. Stick around after to hear a little bit more about what you can expect when you fly. Hello, and welcome to this episode of For Traveling Teens. Today I have with me Valerie. Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Hi, can you introduce yourself to us?
My name is Valerie.
And how old are you, Valerie?
12.
12. And what country do you live in?
USA.
Awesome. All right. So, Valerie, big question. Why do you like to travel?
It's really fun, and I end up learning a lot from it.
Okay. What makes it so fun?
We get to explore new things and go to different places that we've never been to before.
Oh, I like that. And what sort of things do you find that you learn or that you like to learn when you travel?
The history, the culture.
Okay. So, what is your favorite way to travel? Do you love to travel by boat, car, RV, plane, bus?
I really like to travel by plane.
You do. How many times have you been on a plane? Do you know?
About like 25 times.
Oh my gosh. So, what is your favorite thing about plane travel? What makes it so awesome?
It's really comfortable and it's really fast.
Yes, you can get to lots of places a lot quicker than driving around for sure. So, it's really comfortable, you said. What do you most look forward to when you get to go on a plane?
I really look forward to looking out the window and looking at all the clouds and all the people down there.
You are the exact opposite of me, Valerie. So I I fly at this point because I have to if I want to go to cool places, but I had a little bit of a flight experience that was not fun for me, and it's really hard for me to look out the window. So I actually pull my shade down and try not to look out the window and try not to see the people because I would really rather prefer not to think about the fact that I'm 30,000 feet above the ground. So
I got over that over time.
yes. And that's really important. And some flights, usually if I have like more than one flight in a day, by like the second or third flight, I'm a lot more comfortable. But the first flight of the day is always really tough. What's the longest flight you've ever been on?
I was on a plane for 18 hours.
Where did you go?
I went to Asia.
Love it. Yes, we have flown to Thailand before. We have flown to Bali in Indonesia. And we have flown to Australia and New Zealand. So I know about those long flights. Are they still super comfortable after 18 hours?
Yes.
Oh, good. And what is your favorite thing to do on the plane?
I really like to draw, watch movies.
Yeah, I always feel like it's a good opportunity to catch up on movies that I've missed. um, do you do you love do you like get up and walk around and things like that, or do you pretty much just stay in your seat?
I usually just stay in my seat for like 95% of the plane ride.
I am the same. My husband Steven has to get up and walk around like every little bit, and I'm like, nope, I'll just be here until I absolutely have to get up and walk around. All right. Well, thank you. That's really cool. I like hearing about why young people like plane travel and things like that. So, all right, big question. Here we go. How many states, countries, or other places have you been to?
Around 25.
25 countries?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. How many different states in the United States have you been to?
2.
I love it. I love that you've been to more. to more countries than states. I love that. And for a long time, that was me as well. I had been to a lot more countries than I had states. Now, because we're on our 5-year, 50-state road trip, which is going to be 6 or 7, thank you, COVID, we have done about 25 states as well. But yeah, so 25 different countries. Oh my gosh, I am sure that you have a ton of amazing stories. I cannot wait to get to them. But before we do, why do you think it's important for teens and tweens to travel away from their home?
Well, I think it's important because you have more experiences and you learn more about other places. And you don't think that the place that you live in currently is the only place and the best place ever.
That is very true as well, either your state or your country. I think even going to different states, the United States, you start to learn more about other people and places, even within the country. So for sure, that is a really good thing to learn. So here we go. What is your biggest travel dream? I mean, 25 countries already. It's got to be tough. Where do you most dream of going?
Well, I've already been to both of these places, but I want to go again and again and again.
Okay, tell me, where are they? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Tokyo, because they have anime there and it's really pretty.
Ooh, and where's the other place?
Prague, because they have my favorite dessert there that I have not found here in America.
What is your favorite dessert?
Chimney cake.
Can you tell me about it? I've never heard of it.
It's like this big roll with like a hole in the middle, like a big hole. And it's just dough with cinnamon on top. And it's fried and and you can choose to put Nutella in it or ice cream in it.
You had me at fried Nutella and ice cream for sure. Oh my gosh, those are some of my most favorite things. I can see why you would really like to do this. Have you ever tried to make it at home?
No, because you
Yeah.
need like a specific thing. You need like a specific type oven.
Okay, awesome. Well, I am going to write that down because I'm going to add it. So we have a spreadsheet where we keep all of the travel suggestions that people give us, but we also have an international tab. I'm going to add chimney cake in Prague because I would like to go to Prague. I have never been. And Tokyo, I only got to go to the airport. I had plans to go into Tokyo when we flew in because we had a 7-hour layover. So my big plan and my dream at the time, and I even had a t-shirt for it, like I was ready. They have a hedgehog cafe in Tokyo. Did you go to the hedgehog cafe?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. So you pay $20 to hang out in the hedgehog cafe for an hour and drink your tea, except that I don't drink tea, so whatever. And you get to just pet and hold hedgehogs. Like, to me, that experience is worth well more than $20. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite worth the amount that it was going to cost to get from Narita into Tokyo and back out. It was going to be $90 each way for my husband and I to get into Tokyo and back out. And it was going to be an hour and a half each way. And we'd have to find the hedgehog cafe. So in the end, sadly, my hedgehog shirt had to be retired temporarily until we can get back to Tokyo and actually spend some time there and go to the hedgehog cafe.
Wow.
Yes, right. It was I was devastated. I was so sad. But hopefully one day. So what else do you love about Tokyo and why you want to get back? You mentioned anime and you mentioned that it's beautiful. Tell me all the things.
Well, they have roads that like intercept, like a lot of like crosswalks that intercept in different ways.
That sounds cool.
And there's like a lot of people there.
Are you an extrovert? Do you like being around a lot of people, or do you wish it were a little emptier?
I'm an introvert.
So you're like, oh, great, it's full of people.
I'm fine with looking at all the people because it looks cool to have it so crowded, but not being in that crowd.
Okay. So you prefer to observe it from above or from the side. Okay. See, you might have guessed, I'm a major extrovert. In fact, we call me an extrovert, like, because literally I would be like in the middle of that crowd being like, let me talk to everyone, let me give everyone hugs. Like, that's just literally who I am. So I am my husband would be like you. He would be like, you go stand in the middle and talk to people. I'll be over here on the side watching and looking at my phone. So what is it about anime that you love so much that's so big there in Tokyo?
I really like how you can find anything about any anime wherever you go. You'll find some merchandise.
Awesome. Very cool. So you've mentioned these places are like your dream places. So I might be asking a redundant question, and I know it wasn't an original question, but so you've been to 25 countries. Which one is your favorite?
Tokyo.
Japan, Tokyo, for sure. Easy peasy. All right. That one just, I wondered if maybe that would be why. So you don't have anywhere that you haven't been yet that you would really like to go?
Well, I've also kind of wanted to go to Ireland,
Ireland is very beautiful.
and I really want to go to Greece.
Ah, yes. I really want to go to Greece too. It's one of the places I haven't been. You might be new to listening to the podcast as well, Valerie, but if you go back to, I believe it is 2 episodes ago, you'll see it. I think it's episode 8 or 9. It's Catherine. She also, her dream is to go to Ireland. And I actually did a whole little spiel at the end about what 1 week in Ireland could look like if you did a road trip there. So you might want to look there and listen and hear about the things to add to your wander list that you might find really cool. So we've been to Ireland 3 times. So I really love Ireland for sure.
Oh,
All right. So now that we're talking trips, we're talking plans. How much input do you have or do you like to have when your family or your school is planning a trip?
I get a decent amount. Sometimes I like to have more input, but it's usually just the same.
Do you have any siblings or is it just you and your parents?
It's just me and my parents.
Yeah, I'm an only child as well. So the nice thing about that is you don't have to try and like get in with your siblings and what they like, which is cool. So have you ever picked the place you're going to go, or do your parents kind of say, we're planning a trip to Prague, what do you want to do?
My parents tell me where we're going.
Okay, cool.
Usually, wherever they tell us that we're going, I just already really love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you're happy with kind of the amount of input that you have in terms of like giving ideas and stuff. Have you ever been on any school trips or do you homeschool?
Um, well, I have gone on a couple school trips.
Do you guys have any input in that at all, or do your teachers just plan it and tell you what you're going to do?
I mean, we pay for it.
That's true. That's true. You could register your disgust by not paying and not going, but sounds like it's probably better to get to go. Are you pretty happy with those trips?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I have a question about that later, so we'll come back to that a little bit later on. All right, so it's time to pack for your trip. I mean, besides the obvious of like your clothes and your shoes and whatever, what are your must-haves when you pack for a trip? What do you pack? What do you download? What can you not leave home without?
The first thing that I do is download movies off Netflix.
Nice, very good. What and are those like anime movies, or do you have other movies you enjoy?
Well, the last trip that I went on was anime movies, but here they don't really have many good anime movies that I haven't seen already,
Hmm.
or the ones that, they're just not on download.
Okay. All right. So you download a bunch of Netflix movies. What else?
I always bring my iPad and my Apple Pen.
Nice, because you said you like to draw.
Hmm.
So are you like pursuing art? Is that something that you really enjoy doing, or is it more of a hobby?
Both.
Okay. Does it kind of act like your travel journal? Like, do you sketch the things that you see and do, or is it more of just like a stress reliever?
Only once have I done that.
How did it go?
It was like a surprise for my friend because she didn't know that I was leaving.
Oh,
So I drew a postcard
oh, I love that. That's
and I sent
beautiful.
it to her by text. But since I was in Dubai at the time, it was like 10 hours. It was a 10-hour difference.
Yeah, but that's still super cool. And it would have taken a lot longer if you'd mailed the postcard. So.
Yeah.
That's really neat. I love that. What did you draw in Dubai that you sent as the postcard?
Well, I really like to draw characters with like bags for heads.
Uh-huh.
And I just drew my character like in front of a bunch of places that I had been to.
Very cool. I don't know too much about Dubai other than it is a place I want to go. I have a friend that lives there. Did you go to the palm tree island that they made out there?
Yes.
Yes. Was it cool?
Yeah.
Awesome. Very good. All right. So when you're looking at a location, when your parents say, we're going to Prague, we're going to Tokyo, we're going to Dubai, what are you looking for on a trip? Are you looking to hike? Are you looking for amusement parks? Are you looking for food, history, beaches, art? What are you looking for?
Well, when it comes to specific places, I like if they have a beach, we're most likely going.
Are you a beach girl more than a mountain girl?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're most likely going to go to a beach. What else are you looking for when you go somewhere?
The food.
Yes.
The food is always very good.
Excellent. We're going to come back to talking about if you're an adventurous eater or not, and I'll be curious to see what it is. So you're looking for great food, you're looking for the beach. Since you enjoy drawing, do you enjoy going to like art museums and things, or do you prefer just to do that more for yourself?
Well, it depends on which art museum, because sometimes all of the art museums look the same,
Mm-hmm.
like the ones in Italy, where it's
Okay.
like it's the same thing over and over and over again.
When you've seen one Renaissance painting, you've seen them all.
Yes.
I do have to agree with you. I enjoy the occasional art museum. I know a lot of my friends and a lot of young people that I spend time with, they enjoy going to the art museums and seeing all the different things. I can do one here and there as kind of an exciting extra, like a really cool one, like a Guggenheim or something. But otherwise, I'm pretty good with just other museums because I love history. You mentioned that you enjoy learning about the history and culture of a place. Do you like going to their like historic sites and things like that?
Well, I like going to the history museums more,
Okay. Ooh.
but I also like going to the sites.
Right. Very good. I'm big on learning on location. I love young people to get the opportunity to go to a place and kind of learn about it. So you mentioned going to Italy. Did you end up going to like Pompeii and Vesuvius or maybe Rome?
We went to Rome, but we haven't gone to any other place,
Okay.
or
So
at
you
least
went,
I haven't.
okay. In Rome, did you get to see like the the Senate, like the Forum, all the old parts of Rome?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. All right. So yeah, I did that too. I only got 2 days in Rome. It's my dream to go back to Rome, but they have a fountain in Rome called the Fountain of Trevi, and the superstition is that you throw a coin in, you're destined to return to Rome. And I was like, I don't need to do that. I'm destined to return to Rome anyway. It's amazing here. I didn't throw a coin in, and I haven't been back. And I've tried to go a bunch of times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I totally bad superstitioned myself out of going back to Rome. So hopefully that's not the case. All right, so we're talking about trip memories now, talking about kind of like, ooh, we've been to Rome, we've been to Tokyo, been to Prague. So, Valerie, what is your favorite trip memory?
I have 3 favorite trip memories.
I'm excited to hear them all. Go ahead.
The first one was the first time that I ever tried chimney cake.
Oh, that's my favorite trip memory, and I haven't even had it yet.
Chimney cake is very big. I had to share it with my mom and my dad. It's
Okay.
that large.
So Valerie, I'm gonna shame myself a little bit here for a moment before you go to your other 2 stories. There's Ben and Jerry's in Vermont, and they have a Vermonster ice cream that I really wanted to get. It is 20 scoops of ice cream. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't, but I'm still gonna shame myself because I got the mini Vermonster ice cream, which is 6 scoops of ice cream, 2 cookies, 2 brownies, whipped cream, 3 different topping choices.
That's the mini?
Yeah, I ate the whole bucket myself in 25 minutes. And I wasn't even in a food competition. Like literally just me and my bucket of Ben and Jerry's. It was
Wow.
the best. So when you talk about this chimney cake and you talk about needing to share it with 2 adults, challenge extended, challenge accepted. I'm going to have to see if I have to share it with Stephen or if I can indeed eat an entire chimney cake all by myself, since I do have slight mini Vermonster fame. One family saw me eating it at the beginning, and then they saw me walking around later with the plastic bucket that it came in, and it was like swinging, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, she ate it all." I probably should be embarrassed by that, but I don't. I wear it as a bit of a badge of honor. So, so chimney cake, first and best trip memory. All right, you said you had two more.
The second best one was going to Sanrio World.
What is that?
It is in Tokyo,
Oh,
and it is Sanrio is like a group of cartoons where that's where Hello Kitty is,
mm-hmm.
and like other ones. And like my favorite is like this egg one, which I have right here.
I love Lazy Egg. I can't say his name properly, so I don't want to say it. What is it?
Gudetama.
That's him. Yes, he's my favorite too.
And like they had different sections for each of the characters. So my favorite part was the Gudetama part.
Yeah.
And that was really cute.
So for listeners who don't know about this little egg, he like does like little, he's cute and he's got his little yolk is like his little face. He like takes naps with like bacon blankets and stuff. Like he's just super cute.
He just sleeps in food and he just kind of sits there.
Yes, he is very much probably my Patronus on some level. So you loved that part the most. So what else is so amazing about the Sanrio place?
They also had like this one part where everyone would just kind of sit down and there would just be a show and it would just be Hello Kitty on a screen and like everything would go pink and then someone would come down and like this from the sky in like a little cart dressed up as Hello Kitty in a princess outfit, and she would just start singing in Japanese.
Wow, that sounds incredible. So question for you, is this place more like a museum, or is it more like a amusement park, or is it like a
It's
blend?
an amusement park.
So are there rides that you can
It
do?
is, it's indoor.
Ooh.
So they couldn't have that many huge rides.
Are you a rider? Do you like to ride rides, or you not so much?
I don't like the big rides at all.
No, me neither. Nope. I'm with you. Valerie, I feel like you and I, like, there's so many similarities to us. And the mere fact that your favorite travel memory is a giant cake just makes me love you all the more. And then of course our lazy egg obsession. So third favorite travel memory, I cannot wait because I'm about to find out like where my next awesome thing is going to be as well. Tell me, I'm ready.
So one time we were in Paris. It was in the airport. And we had to go down an escalator. And I was already at the bottom of the escalator with my tiny luggage. But then both of my parents with the two big ones fell down the escalator.
Oh my gosh. I love that that's your favorite trip memory. If I were interviewing your parents, they would probably say that was their worst trip memory.
They're in the room with me right now.
I love that you've totally just escalator shamed them both. Very good. Well, Valerie, it must be an adult thing. I didn't fall as an adult, but as a kid, I almost fell down the escalator. So see, yet another, so I'm very concerned about escalators as well. Like I will get on them, but they're not my favorite. It takes me, like I have to sit and watch and like time myself, like 1, 2, okay, step. So see, me and your parents now, we probably all stand at the top of the escalator and really think long and hard about the choice we're about to make. But not you. You're confident with your tiny suitcase down at the bottom, just waiting for the adults to fall down after you. I love it. All right. So speaking of worst trip memories, if you feel comfortable, do you mind sharing your own worst trip memory?
The worst trip memory, which none of my mom and dad do not remember.
That's because it scarred you, not them. They remember the escalator thing.
Well, they were really stressed about this time too.
Okay.
They were just probably so stressed that they forgot about
it.
Yeah,
they've blocked it out. Their minds are like, no, this never happened. All right, Valerie, enter my seat. Go ahead.
The first time that we went to Dubai, we were on our way back home. We were in the airport, and I don't remember it that clearly, but we were like in this room filled with people and we were trying to get to the airplane because we were running late. And like there was this, and I just remember being in a room with a table in the middle with papers on it that said Dallas.
Uh-huh.
And I just remember being stressed out of our minds,
Oh my
trying
gosh.
to run through.
Right. And try and like push your way through like nicely but firmly through all these people to get to your plane. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh. Yes. I have had several of those stories, but I will tell you my worst airport story is we landed in Frankfurt. My friend and I went to London for a long weekend to see the Harry Potter play because I'm a Harry Potter nerd, but I feel like with your love of anime, I can probably share that with you and you won't judge me too harshly. Um, so we were going to see the play in London and we landed in Frankfurt at like it was the middle of the night in Frankfurt, which means it was the next morning, you know, or it was the middle of the night in the US. And like we were exhausted. We'd flown over from like first to Norfolk, then to DC, then to Frankfurt. And we had to get to where we were going, but literally the airport is empty in Frankfurt and it's just a bunch of circles. That's all I can remember is feeling like we were just all alone, just circling around and around and around. And then you'd go down this long line. I mean, it took us like 20 minutes to get to our next gate, like with no one there and not but just like firmly trying to walk there. But it was literally like, where do we go now? Because it's another set of circles and another long hallway. And there was nobody to ask. There was no like, oh, information. It was the worst. It probably doesn't sound all that stressful, but when you're exhausted and you're trying to drag your suitcase with you and figure out where you're going, and everything is in German and I don't speak German, it was very stressful. So I can definitely appreciate those airport stories, but I have definitely had to run through an airport more than once. At this point in my life, I'm pretty much like, you know what, we'll catch the next one. It was just so bad. All right. So, worst trip memory. All right, good. Now, do you have any other funny or interesting stories that maybe aren't your best or your worst that you want to share with me?
Um, I don't think so.
Okay, that's all right. If any come to you, feel free to share them, okay? All right. Big question. Are you an adventurous eater?
I have tried a couple of things.
Okay.
Like the first time that I tried sushi,
How did that go?
that was an adventure.
I love sushi. So, how do you feel about sushi?
Now I like it, but before we didn't go to a very good place.
Okay. All right.
I tried the fried one
Okay.
and it wasn't very good.
No, wasn't for you. What other things have you tried?
Well, chimney cake.
Yeah, that was definitely worth trying for sure. If for no other reason than to make
100%.
me obsessed with it.
I was a little scared of it for a couple of seconds.
Uh
It's huge.
huh. Love it. Anything else you've tried that you've been like, oh no, thank you? You mentioned being in Paris. Did you try snails there?
No, I did not. I'm not that much of an adventurous eater.
Well, regular listeners to our podcast will know my most adventurous thing I've eaten is sea slug, and it kind of
Oh.
tastes like salty Jello. So I'm a pretty adventurous eater. I will pretty much try just about anything. So yeah, I'm pretty brave. The one thing that I'm a little skeptical about, and maybe you've tried it having traveled in Asia, is either like scorpion on a stick or like eating live octopus, where their
Nope.
like little tentacles are like in your mouth.
Nope.
Neither of those.
I am not that much of an adventurous eater. No one in this room is that much of an adventurous eater.
Well, good to know. And it's good that you have family that like accepts that there are just some things that are not for you. I totally understand. Because some of my other interviews with my students are like, yeah, my mom and dad had me try that. So I'm glad that your parents aren't like, let's see what happens. Oh, goodness. So some things maybe, how do you mentioned being super stressed during your worst trip memory. How do you deal with fear or maybe anxiety when something comes up that you're not sure about? You mentioned you don't really like big rides, maybe new foods, not knowing where you're going. Like how do you deal with feeling anxious when you travel?
I just follow my parents
Okay. So you just
because
trust
they
that they're
usually know
gonna,
what they're doing.
okay. That sounds like a good plan. So go traveling with people that you trust. It sounds like your parents also do good things to build trust, like not make you eat octopus.
Yeah.
So, what is something that you want parents or teachers to know when planning a trip with or for teens and tweens?
Well, if it's your first time planning a trip like outside of the country or or just a different state,
Mhm.
don't go too far away. Like your first one shouldn't be like China.
Not so foreign from your normal life.
Yeah, like maybe go to somewhere else that's like if you live in America, maybe like start off with going to Canada
Yeah.
if you want to go across the country, like countries and stuff.
Have you been to Canada?
Nope.
Not yet, huh?
Wait, we have? I don't remember
In
that.
Vancouver, yeah.
You were pretty little, probably. Well, when you find yourself back in Canada, I highly recommend, since you enjoy the foods with the Nutellas, I highly recommend finding a food called a beaver tail. Don't worry, it's not real beaver tail. It is a large pastry that is big like a beaver's tail, and it's flat, and it's like a fried flatbread, so fried, just like your chimney cake. Then you can get whatever you want on top of it. Usually they have like a bunch of different flavors. So I do banana and Nutella on mine. Steven does like apple cinnamon. Super delicious, super amazing beaver tail, especially if you're like in the Niagara Falls area, they have beaver tails. You also have to try poutine. Poutine is French fries covered with cheese curds and gravy. It sounds suspicious, but it's actually super delicious. So I highly
It
recommend.
sounds good.
Okay, good. Excellent. See, I knew that our hearts for food were very similar despite my slightly more adventurous edge. All right, and here is our final question for you. What would you say to other teens and tweens who are not sure if travel is for them?
Well, if you've been told that your ears hurt a lot on a plane,
Mm-hmm.
it goes away
Okay.
with like gum.
Yeah.
And
You put the gum in your ears or?
no, you eat the gum.
Yes. For those who maybe don't know what you're supposed to do with the gum. Yes, you chew the gum and it makes your ears pop. Yes.
And enjoy the moment. Don't think about later too much or like don't try just try to enjoy what's happening right now where you are, the things that you can do and hear.
Valerie, that is perfect, beautiful advice and just the right thing to end on. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
In today's episode, we met Valerie. You might have heard Valerie and I talking a fair bit about flight. We've discussed flying occasionally with different members of our community who have been on the podcast, but this is kind of the first time that we spent a little bit more time kind of talking about what to expect when you fly, what you love about when you fly. And I thought this would be a perfect time. We are recording this during the COVID-19 pandemic, but as things are starting to reopen and people are beginning to travel more again, to talk about what you can expect when you fly. Now, I'll be honest, I loved flying when I was younger. Obviously, a big event like September 11th, 2001 was a big impact on me. I was in my early 20s when that happened, and it created a little bit of fear about flying. But I'm someone who I was determined that I was still going to see the world, even if that was something that seemed really scary at the time. I continued to fly. My husband is English. We would fly to and from Europe all the time and to different places and around the US. And I didn't always love it, but I wasn't as anxious as I have become over time. I had a really unfortunate flight experience, nothing dangerous, just something that caused some fear in me. And now, whenever I feel turbulence on a plane, my mind and body take me back to that moment where I was really afraid. I work through it a lot and I have a lot of strategies in place, which I'm going to share with you later. But first, I want to talk to you about what it's like to get through the airport onto the plane and getting up into the sky. So, when you arrive at the airport, if you only have carry-on luggage, that means something that you're not going to put in the belly of the plane. It needs to make sure it's a certain size and a certain weight. Got to make sure you don't have any liquids in it that are larger than the size recommended by the airline. And you need to make sure you have all your documents ready. So maybe any form of ID or your passport, and obviously your tickets, whether or not you have a paper ticket or a mobile ticket. Sometimes you may, especially if you're traveling with your family, you may have some suitcases that you need to put down in the belly of the plane. And so you're going to go and you're going to check things in. Sometimes they have an automated check-in, which is really nice. And you just put a sticker on your bag and send it through. Other times you have to go up and talk to a ticket agent and get everything sorted. They're going to weigh it. They're going to ask you questions about what's in your bag. And then it's going to go off on a little conveyor belt down into the back. And it's going to end up at your destination, hopefully at the same time that you get there. Oh, I've been there before where it didn't get there when you wanted it to. Mr. Steven and I spent 4 days in Bali without our luggage when we were there. And so I definitely understand the stress of not having your clothes that you had planned. So tip number one I have for you is, even if you are checking luggage, always bring at least one pair of clothes and your toothbrush and deodorant in your carry-on luggage. You will be happier for it. Depending on how far you have flown, you will want to make sure that you have those necessities with you. That is just my tried and true tip after losing our luggage a few different times, and particularly that last time. Always have at least one change of clothes on your person with your carry-on luggage, your toothbrush and your deodorant. If you're flying internationally, sometimes toothbrush and deodorant might be provided depending on what airline you're flying with, what class you're flying in, if it's economy or economy plus or business class or first class. So there's lots of options there. And in most places, especially if you're traveling domestically in the United States or in other developed countries, those are things you might be able to access right away, or your hotel might provide them, but it's always a good idea to have it with you. So that's my first tip. So once your luggage goes off and you've got your carry-on and you're now ready to head through to security. If you are very fortunate, you may have something called TSA pre-check. And that means that you have been approved to go through the security, particularly here in the United States, without having to take off your shoes and take your things out of your bag and all of these different things. Most people don't necessarily have that. That's a service that some adults kind of pay for. So your standard experience is that you're going to go and stand in line. You're going to show your boarding pass and your ID to another member of security. Then you're going to head through and you're going to go through either metal detectors or maybe a body scanner. So what you do if you're flying, particularly within the US, is you're going to take off your shoes, your belt, but everybody basically everywhere has to take off any kind of metal, nothing in your pockets. Obviously, you don't want to have any sort of weapons with you. So if you're someone who typically carries like a pocket knife on you and you're not really thinking about it, you'll want to make sure that that is put in your checked luggage so it cannot come on the plane with you. And there's all kinds of things you can look at on the airline's website before you go through. So here is my second tip for you. My second tip is regarding security. Wear stuff that is easy to take off, easy to put on, and have everything tucked away in your bag before you get to security, except for the things you have to remove. That way, when you go through security, you don't have to stand there and try and put your belt on and try and put your shoes on and try and put your money back in your pocket and grab your tissues and then grab your book and then grab your headphones and then grab your thing. No, you have it all together in your bag. Just pull out the things the airline tells you to. I recommend, if you are wearing flip-flops for the plane, maybe bring a pair of socks as well. That's part of that second tip of preparing for security. So I would make sure that you go through and you have those items with you. So if you don't want to be barefoot in the security area, if you have to take your shoes off, not every country requires you to take your shoes off, but it is pretty much a requirement throughout the United States. So you're through security. Don't joke with the TSA people. Let them do their job. Be polite, be respectful, but listen to what they tell you. If they tell you to put things in a bin or not put things in a bin, wait for your luggage or go through different things. Very occasionally, they may want to take a look inside your bag, and so they'll pull you over to the side, or they may have had something show up on one of their scans and they may need to do a wand over you or things like that. If you're traveling with your parents or a teacher, they're going to be there to help walk you through that process. So you don't need to feel anxious about it. Once you're through security, it's clear sailing, but all the way through until you get to the plane, really. You then are going to find your gate. This is usually a combination of letters and numbers that are going to tell you where you're going to go. And you're going to sit and wait and wait and wait. So maybe you find some snacks, maybe you go to the bathroom, and you might find, I know it's no fun to talk about bathroom stuff, but you might find that if you're excited or anxious about this, you may end up having to go to the bathroom more times than you normally would, but it's a really good idea to just make sure you just take your time, try to get there with lots of time, especially if you're anxious, so you don't have to feel stressed or upset. Another tip I have, tip number 3, is that you cannot take liquids, large liquids like bottles of water, through security, at least not here in the United States. And so carry an empty water bottle with you. And then once you get through security, you can fill your water bottle up, no problem. And it's much cheaper than trying to buy bottled water at the airport. There are some fun snacks and shops, but everything is more expensive in the airport. So unless you really need a souvenir or have something like emergency that you need to purchase right away, it's best to not. Bring your snacks, things like that with you. And you can often bring food and snacks and drinks on the plane. Once you're in through security, you can buy drinks and things like that for the plane. So it's a great way to make sure that you have an opportunity to do that. And if you remember, if you've listened to Liam's episode, he loves drinking apple juice when he travels. He doesn't drink apple juice a lot of the time, but he drinks it on the airplane and he enjoys it. So it's time to get on the plane. Usually what's going to happen is they're going to have you line up and come in based on priority seatings that they have, right? So if you are flying by yourself and you're, I believe, under the age of 18 or 16, you're going to be flying probably, and a flight attendant will kind of accompany you. You're considered an unaccompanied minor, and they're going to take you through onto the plane, usually early. You might also see that elderly people or people who are in military service or people who have disabilities will get time to get on the plane earlier as well. Then it's time for their general boarding, and they'll call your boarding number. If they don't call your boarding group and you notice that it's getting emptier and emptier, it's a really good idea to go up and check and make sure you haven't missed it, because you certainly don't want to miss your plane. Once you get through that part, you're going to show them your ticket one more time, your boarding pass, and then you're going to head down the jetway is what it's called. And it's kind of like this, usually it's this big kind of tube, this tunnel that takes you down to the plane. Very occasionally, you will head outside and go up some stairs to get on your plane. That's okay too. It's just a different experience for you. But it's no less or more safe than going through the jetway. Very occasionally, if you're on a tiny plane, they will have you check your carry-on, but make sure that if it's something that you have in there that's special that you don't want broken, like I travel with my camera bag, I don't hand that over to be put down, because they'll put that underneath the plane as well. You'll just get it back on the other end right away. So you get on the plane, you find your seat, and you sit down, put your seatbelt on, and then it's another waiting game. You're really just waiting for everyone else to find their seat. You're waiting for the flight attendants to do all of their checks, the pilots to do all of their safety checks, and then it's time to go. When it's ready for takeoff, everybody is going to be getting ready to get excited, and things that are going to happen are they're going to tell you to turn your cell phone wireless off if you have your phone with you, or an iPad, making sure it's not connected to any sort of cellular service. A lot of times now in planes, they have service that you can access, but you need to talk to your parents about that, because sometimes it does cost money. Usually you'll find that especially if you're on an international flight, they'll have a screen in front of you full of games and movies. And the great thing to do is just put your headphones on, find a great game or movie, and wait until it's time to get up in the air. A tip that I have, this is now tip number 4. Tip number 4 that I have for you is that you wear really comfortable clothes. I tend to travel in kind of like loose sweatpants or yoga pants, a nice comfortable shirt. I bring a pair of socks if I'm going to be wearing flip-flops. Sometimes you have to be wearing tennis shoes because you don't have enough room in your suitcase. And I totally know that it's a lot easier to put flip-flops in your suitcase than your tennis shoes or boots. But you're going to want to get up and walk around on the flight if it's not a short flight, if it's a longer flight. So having your flip-flops with you and then a pair of socks so that your feet don't get cold, and also so that you don't have to walk barefoot around the plane, is a great idea. And then I also pretty much always bring either a coat or a sweatshirt, depending on where I'm going. Even if I'm going like to somewhere really warm and tropical, I bring my sweatshirt with me so that I'm not cold on the plane. Planes are often very, very cold or very, very warm, but more often than not, very, very cold. So everybody will be told to sit down, get ready, seatbelts on. It's best to leave your seatbelt on for the entire flight, and then you take off. One of the things that I noticed when I was flying that always made me a little bit nervous is we would be going up, 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 up at an angle, and then it would kind of feel like the plane dropped a little. And I was always really nervous about that until I realized that it is just the nose of the plane leveling out. So the plane is no longer facing up at an angle, but is now kind of facing at a less of an angle or straight on to be able to head to where they're going. And then pilots have different marks that they have to get. So they're going to fly to one point and then they're going to turn and fly to the next point, and then they're going to turn and fly to the next point. So sometimes it might feel confusing when there's a big turn happening, or when you kind of feel the engines maybe slow down or turn. When it seems like, well, aren't we heading south, right? And you're kind of heading west or you're heading east and you're confused about that. It's just the way the pilot's flight path needs to go. Meanwhile, while the pilots are keeping you safe, the flight attendants are keeping you safe, and ground control is keeping you safe. And you are always, when you're on a plane, in the hands of someone from ground control. And when you leave one set of airspace, you're picked up by another set of airspace. I had the opportunity to go and see behind the scenes at ground control and at air traffic control in the ground, on the ground. And it was really helpful for me to remember that there are all these people who take their job really, really seriously, and that your safety is paramount, and you can watch plane after plane get safely to its destination. So one of the big things that makes people anxious about flying is being so high up in the air. And everyone will say, well, I'm afraid of heights. One thing that I learned early on is that you're not afraid of heights necessarily. You're afraid of falling, and you're afraid of being out of control. And both of those fears can be heightened when you're on an airplane. So a few strategies that I have used. Sometimes I like to sit by the window and look out, but if it makes me feel too nervous, I just close the window and I don't look out the window. I bring a really good book. I've mentioned before that I'm a Harry Potter fan. And so worst case scenario, I dig right into Harry Potter for the probably 10th or 12th or 15th time and get lost in a really good book before we get up in the air, so that I'm kind of sucked into the story by the time we get up there. A thing that makes people nervous is turbulence. Turbulence is rough air. So air currents, air has stuff to it. You're flying through air. And so occasionally there's going to be some bumpiness. The best way I heard this described was it's like being on a boat in the water, just like you go over waves in a boat on the water, even a pretty calm bit of water. You go kind of over this idea of these air currents, these air waves as you fly. And that is what can provide that turbulence. So the best thing to do then is just to take deep breaths. And if you have some other strategies in place like I do, I have a couple of different apps that I play. I have relaxing music that I play. I try to watch movies. I try to watch games. I try to play games. Read a book. And if none of those things are working, it's okay to talk to your parents and a doctor about something that might help keep you calm while you fly. I personally, as an adult, have a very small amount of medication that I take when I fly, specifically just to help my body and brain feel as calm as possible. Let the flight attendants know they're there to be on your side. They're kind and understanding, and they will help you understand what's going on as well. So it's now time to land. So you're coming in, it touches down. Sometimes planes feel like they're coming in really, really fast. And when you touch down there, they're going to kind of hit the brakes. You're going to kind of be thrown forward a little bit. It's always really important that you have your seatbelt on so that there are no accidents in your seat. Always making sure that you have your seatbelt on and following all the instructions of the crew. Then it's time to head out. If you're going to a connecting flight, you're going to find your next gate and head there. Hopefully you have plenty of time between connections so you don't have to run. Oh, but I've been there. You have to run too. Or you're heading outside to ground transportation, which if you're traveling with a teacher or a parent, they will have arranged for you, or someone is probably meeting you, maybe someone from your family or a friend who is there to meet you. So that is what you can expect very basically when you fly. Just reminding you those little tips that I have for you in getting prepared. So number one, make sure you have some clothes with you, deodorant, toothpaste on your person. Number two, bring a bottle with you so you can fill it up with water. Number three is bring some sort of sweatshirt with you. Make sure you have really comfortable clothes with you. And number four, have a really good book, things like that, and some strategies in place for you. I think I did those tips right. I don't know. I might have missed one. But I hope that you enjoyed this week's podcast, and I look forward to you joining us again for our next episode. Remember, if you liked this episode, Please review us wherever you are listening. And if you are a teen or tween who's interested in being interviewed for the podcast, I would love to hear from you. Reach out to me at thetravelingteach.com/contact. I'm Shae Pepper, the Traveling Teach. At the time of this recording, I am on a 5-year, 50-state road trip around the US, although with COVID, it's going to end up being 6 or 7 years. Darn you, COVID. But I travel full time with my husband, Stephen, and our dog, Truffles. I'm a professional youth worker and online educator. I'm passionate about learning on location and want to bring that experience to as many young people as possible through my virtual field trips. To learn more about my travels and online classes, go to thetravelingteach.com. To follow Truffles' travels, our trip from her perspective, which I am sure is infinitely more interesting to most of you than I am, go to @TrufflesTravelsUS on Instagram. To be a guest, tween, or teen on the podcast, just reach out at thetravelingteach.com/contact. This has been an episode of For Traveling Teens, a podcast for teens and tweens who love travel, whether they're actively traveling or just dreaming.